Hey, podcast listeners, you are tuned in to the Denko Gridiron Show. John Piper along with Grayson Nolette. It is a live Thursday edition. Hard to believe, Grayson, Thursday, December 3rd, man. We were talking about that earlier. We're already in the month of December 2020.
Playoffs are either already underway for 4A, and we'll definitely discuss Argyle and how they're doing in the 4A playoffs, but the 5 and 6A playoffs are right around the corner now, John. We're going to be wrapping up.
Yeah, big show today, winding down the regular season this week and rolling into the 5A, 6A playoffs. Argyle, man, just continues to roll. We'll talk about that, so stay tuned. Share out the broadcast, comment, let us know where you're tuning in from, and thank you for being a part of the Denko Gridiron Show. We'll start here in just a couple minutes. Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, we'll have to say goodbye, I guess, for 2020 to two of our teams. We won't say which teams they are. We'll wait for the show, but we got two teams that already wrapped up their 2020 season, so we'll say goodbye to them till next year. But a lot of our schools are going to be heading to the postseason no matter what happens this Friday, John. So definitely a lot of exciting stuff happening here in December for sure.
Hey, let's take a short break and thank one of our sponsors. BudBartleyHomes.com is one of the area's finest home builders, locally owned and operated for over 30 years. 3 new neighborhoods to choose from: Sunset Point, a 1/3 to half-acre lakeview lots, only a 3 to 4 minute walk to Lake Grapevine's Twin Coves Marina. Watch the Gaylord Texans summertime fireworks show from your brand new home. Low-maintenance single-story homes in Highland Village from the upper 400s, and 2-acre lots are available in Copper Canyon. BudBartleyHomes.com, they can build on your lot or theirs. Bud Bartley Homes has built homes for many of the area's top realtors and other industry professionals. We are confident the team at Bud Bartley will exceed your expectations. Take it from me, John Piper. They built my home over 15 years ago. The excitement is building at BudBartleyHomes.com. Man, thank you, the team at Bud Bartley, for being part of the show this season. First season partnering with the show, and we pick and choose who we work with, and Bud Bartley is one of the finest home builders in North Texas. And I know you're a little premature for you to be looking at new homes, but at some point, Grayson, you and your lovely fiance will maybe consider buying a home. So
sometime in the future, John, and they certainly have some eyebrow-raising homes there that I hope our fans saw there in that commercial. And, I mean, they really do some great work.
Hey, Grayson, if you could hold up that Suckle Busters, I'm going to put on the screen right before we get into the show.
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in.
Check it out.
If you will, here, text Dentco to 214-416-9771. We're going to do a gift package or a gift card from our friends at Suckle Busters, and that's just a great way that we can communicate with you. Be part of our texting community. That way, late breaking news, any playoff changes, players of the week, we can text those right out to you, and you can connect with us right where you always are, right on your phone. So let me see if I can bring that over here. There we go. Text Dentco to 214-416-9771, and that way we can communicate with you each and every week throughout this playoff season. So thank you so much. Well, Grayson, you about ready to get into a little football, man?
Yeah, man, let's go ahead and jump right into it. Thanks again to everybody for tuning in today. Got a lot to talk about, some playoff insights, some regular seasons wrapping up, and some big games definitely for a couple of our teams this Friday as well.
Hey, first off, man, last week we had the Sucklebusters ribs. The McClarys brought those up.
Oh, yeah. Shout out again to the McClarys.
Man, that was awesome.
Those ribs last week.
Reason I bring that up, man, how was your Thanksgiving?
Yeah, my Thanksgiving was great. I went down to the Cedar Park, Round Rock area. My family lives in a small little town over there called Lago Vista, if anybody's familiar with it. And definitely in like the hill country down there in that area. And just a really beautiful spot. My parents just finished building their own house over there that they've been working on for a while. So it was the first Thanksgiving that they got to host in their new home. Some good family there, some great times. And Thankfully, nobody had COVID, so it was a really good. It was a really great.
No COVID talk on the show.
Yep, you're right. You're right. No COVID talk on the show.
Well, let's get right into the football.
It was a great time.
We our team does the Denton Guyer Wildcats on the radio, so we had a Friday afternoon. Man, I kind of like that 2 p.m. kick. That way you're home. We were home by 5:30, 6 o'clock. And it was at Little M Stadium. It was. The temperature said 62 degrees, but, man, it was windy. I would say the wind chill was more like 42. Guyer ends up with a 65-21 win, but another little bit of a slow start, but they were in command most of the game. I don't know if you had a chance to watch any of that on the NFHS network or
no. I always watch at the very least the highlights on Huddle or YouTube of something of all of our teams, so I did get to watch the highlights of this game, and Eli Stowers certainly came to play on Thanksgiving or on Black Friday against Little Elm in that 65-21 win. He had 4 total touchdowns, 3 on the ground. He had 1 through the air, and you say that Guyer got started off a little early, but I honestly couldn't tell just because it seemed like they took a really quick 20-0 lead. And then all of a sudden, the Lobos actually came back and put a couple touchdowns of their own on the board before the end of the half, and I think it was 20-14.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of referring to. Just can't really pull away early.
They keep letting people crawl back in.
They let Little Elm kind of scratch their way back in, but then it was all Guyer the rest of the way. Eli Stowers, man, just really looking good. Really running the ball. I think he's becoming more of a prolific runner. Unfortunately, Coach Webb wants him back there in that pocket to throw the ball, but with having some key receivers out, he got it done with his legs.
Yeah, and even though he only threw 8 passes, he completed 7 of them for 153 yards and a touchdown. I mean, to only complete 7 passes, that's a pretty efficient day, John. And, to have 3 rushing touchdowns on the ground, at the end of the day, you got 65 points on the board. If you're Rodney Webb, you can't complain too much about how you're winning games as long as Eli Stowers, I guess, isn't putting himself in. I don't watch enough footage to maybe see if he's taken a lot of hits or something. That's certainly something that he's going to need to shake up once he gets to Texas A&M. But for now, I mean, he's just helping the Wildcats win ball games.
Yeah, another big day for running back B.J. Phillips.
Absolutely.
Eclipsed over 100 yards, 107 yards on 11 carries and 2 touchdowns. Tyon Argyle, 9 carries, 80 yards, 1 touchdown. One of the key storylines, though, unfortunately, Deuce Harmon, their other Texas A&M commit, appears to be out for several weeks.
Oof.
May return late in the playoff run, but a big loss for the Guyer defense.
Yeah, huge blow to the Wildcats defense. That's the first time I'm hearing about that. And the fact that Deuce Harmon, who has been a force, honestly, in that Wildcat secondary this year, he's got several pick sixes. I think he went 3 or 4 games in a row, John, where he had a pick six of some sort.
He's just listed really as an athlete.
He was on fire.
Punt return, kick return, a shutdown corner.
Huge blow for them.
One of the team leaders. We hate to see that senior year. But he's got his sight set on A&M. I think he'll be an early, along with Eli Stowers, an early enrollment on campus there in January down in College Station.
Yeah, and just to keep it positive, you mentioned B.J. Phillips had a good game, and he certainly did. 11 carries, 170 yards, or 107 yards, 2 more touchdowns for him. I believe that's his 3rd game in a row where he's clipped 100 yards rushing, John. He's really kicked it up another gear here in the second half of the regular season for Guyer, so good on B.J. Phillips.
Yeah, Guyer was off this week. I guess it worked out where maybe they scheduled their bye week at the end of the season. I'm not sure how that shook out. I don't think it was due to cancellation. I know they had one COVID, it was a South Lake Carroll game that they couldn't play. But so they had the week off, just kind of waiting to see. We were talking before the show, kind of the playoff brackets. There's some thought maybe they'll get Capel, but we don't know yet. It'll all come out probably Saturday morning. Everything will be kind of fine-tuned.
Yeah, and if this regular season were to end right now at this moment, Guyer would get Capel over there in 6-6A. And the thing is that district just isn't 100% decided over this weekend. All the games still need to be played. Marcus is the only team that's locked down a spot. They are going to get first place in 6-6A no matter what, which means they're most likely going to play Braswell, which we'll dive a little bit more into here in a minute. But at the moment, it looks like Capel is going to get matched up with Guyer. It might be Plano West. It could possibly be Hebron or Louisville. Unlikely that it's going to be Hebron or Louisville. It's most likely going to be either Capel or Plano West.
But Geyer will be ready. You know, they're poised for another pretty deep playoff run. And
I like them, especially in that first matchup against, honestly, any four of those schools. And I call Louisville every Friday, and the Fighting Farmers would have a very tough time handling the Geyer Wildcats on either side of the ball. Now, Deuce Harmon being gone is certainly a big concern for them going into the postseason, but Geyer is looking very strong on the offensive side of the ball, especially.
Well, hey, next up, the Braswell Bengals. They were off this past week.
And they needed it.
You know, they were been banged up. Coach Moore told us they've been banged up. Having that week off, man, just really helps heal. You know, some ice baths and
for sure.
You know, some lingering injuries like sprained ankles, things like that. That extra week really helps. But wow, do they have their work cut out for them tonight up at C.H. Collins?
Yeah, we've got Braswell tonight, Thursday night game. They're taking on the mighty Allen Eagles, the undefeated Allen at 7-0 this season. 5-0 in district. It's just it's do or die here for Braswell, because if they lose this game, they're most likely going to get overtaken by Prosper if they end up winning their game this Friday night or this weekend. I'm not sure who Prosper's playing, but it's do or die for Braswell. They win and they're in, and that's all there is to it. And you have to go, and now they get Allen at home, which is huge for them. But the Eagles are in a position where if they lose, I believe they would actually still maintain first place because they defeated Geyer, and even though both teams would have a district loss, I think that Allen would still win that tiebreaker. But I don't think that the Eagles are going to want to go into the postseason with their first loss of 2020. They're trying to stay undefeated.
This game tonight, Thursday Night Football, right here just north of us, might be more interesting than that 3 o'clock kickoff yesterday. The Baltimore Ravens and the
Ravens and the Steelers.
Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah,
man, that was kind of we don't want to talk too much NFL football, but man, I'll be tuned into this one tonight. That's gonna be a good game. Obviously Braswell, big underdog, but they've got some weapons.
Oh, and Sean McClary just let us know in the comments that Prosper is actually playing McKinney Boyd this week, so that's a really good matchup. I think McKinney Boyd and Prosper match up really, really well. McKinney Boyd is most likely going to make the playoffs no matter how that game shakes out, but Prosper in a do-or-die situation themselves there against the Broncos. So big week.
Thanks, Sean, for tuning in, man. I think that either Sean or Kelly have tuned in each and every week all season long.
Yeah.
So
appreciate the update there on that. But yeah, Prosper certainly has their work cut out for them. I mean, McKinney Boyd is not going to just hand them a W there either. So huge week for Braswell, huge week for Prosper, huge week for 5 and 6, 6A.
I'll look up while we transition over to another big game this past week, man. And I was following that one on social media and a little bit on the live stream feed. But the Battle of the Axe, you were fortunate to be able to call that one. And man, what an exciting game! It was really, Fighting Farmers were in the driver's seat right up there till the fourth quarter.
Oh yeah, it was this year's Battle of the Axe between Flower Mound Marcus, the Marauders, and the Louisville Fighting Farmers, and it was in Louisville, John, and this year. What a game, 58-38, the final score. So Marcus on paper has a 20-point victory there, but it was so much closer than a 20-point victory for the Marauders, in my opinion. That's no discredit to Marcus. Honestly, it's more good on Louisville for really hanging in there. I mean, they made more mistakes than Marcus throughout the game, but they somehow kept clawing their way back into it, John, and they actually had the lead, the Fighting Farmers did, going into the fourth quarter. And then around the 5 or 6 minute mark, with about 5 or 6 minutes left in the game, John, Louisville kind of just started making mistakes. They started with some unfortunate penalties. And then around the 4.5 minute mark, starting running back Damian Martinez had a huge fumble inside of their own territory that Marcus recovered and scored on just a couple plays after that. And then the snowball just kind of started rolling down the hill for Louisville. They threw a pick 6. There was a safety after that, and Marcus really just put a couple nails in that coffin there late in the game and came out with a 20-point win. So good on Marcus for once again taking home the Battle of the Axe for the second year in a row over the Fighting Farmers. Garrett Nussmeier had another amazing game, 21-31, 265 yards, 4 touchdowns through the air, no interceptions. He was amazing. I mean, Louisville came at him so many times throughout the game with just heavy blitzes. There were at least 3 or 4 plays, John, where my color commentator and I, Cody Barfnick, we were like, oh, he's about to get sacked. Like, and you just know it as a football fan. You see how that defense is collapsing, and Garrett Nussmeier somehow gets out of those situations. He is so good at maneuvering in and outside the pocket. I was really impressed with him. He's a totally different quarterback this year than he was last year.
Yeah, good to see a player like that up close and personal. Sean McCleary just said, hey, if McKinney Boyd wins, Braswell's in regardless. So they'll be kind of have eyes on that game as well. So a couple different ways Braswell can get into the postseason, which is, once you get in the postseason, you never know. The ball's not round. It doesn't always bounce right. You get a couple, fumbles, turnovers, get your offense in gear, and some exciting things can happen.
Yeah, appreciate that fact, Sean. That's really good to know. So, yeah, it's good to know that Braswell's got a couple of ways of getting into these playoffs. So, that the Bengals are certainly rooting for the Broncos to finish off their regular season strong against Prosper there. But, again, Prosper's in do or die, so they're going to be out there to play McKinney Boyd for sure. It'll be a couple of games to certainly watch to see how 5-6A and 6-6A are going to shake out going into next week.
All right. Hey, if you guys are just tuning in a little bit later, we've got this new community platform. You can text DENCO to 214-416-9771 to be part of our community. Enables you to communicate right with us. It, more importantly, enables us to reach out to you. Players of the week, breaking news, special programs from some of our show sponsors as well. I think Sucklebusters might be doing something here for the holidays that we can send out to patrons of the show. Yeah,
so make sure you check out that phone number there down at the bottom and stay updated with us here on the Denko Gridiron Show. And just to wrap up, Marcus, they do have one more game, even though they've already secured first place in 6-6A going into next week, which means they will most likely get matched up with Braswell if they end up making the postseason. But Marcus is playing Plano East this Friday. The Panthers are 0-8. Marcus is undefeated. I don't know.
Rough year. When you're 0-8, man, all the work they put in, we talk about it each and every week, the offseason, the weight room. To go 0-8 is tough. I mean, a lot of adversity inside that field house.
Yeah, so Plano East certainly playing for pride out there, and I'm not sure if Kevin Atkinson plans on maybe sitting Garrett Nussmeier and some of the starters for Marcus to give them a rest, but we'll see how it goes. Maybe he'll just play him in the first half, catch an early lead and sit it out. But I guess all I'm saying is, just keeping all the Marauders fans updated on what Marcus is looking at this Friday. They've got Plano East at home, by the way, too. So no matter what happens, I'm expecting Marcus to go undefeated going into the postseason.
Hey, the Jaguars haven't had the year that they had hoped for, but, man, they put another big night, put 63 points on the board against the Plano Wildcats. I had a chance to visit with Coach Brian Basil earlier this week, and that's why you coach. He said the atmosphere in that field house was good. Anytime you can come off a big win like that, kind of building into next year. Unfortunately, they have been eliminated from the postseason, but Coach Basil's really impressed with all these sub-varsity players. Grayson, his JV squads have had a good season. And a lot of things to build on, as they wrap up their season Friday night as well. Nick Evers had a huge night, putting up 63 points. Obviously, I think he combined for 7 touchdowns, maybe 4 through the air and 3 on the ground.
Yeah, Nick Evers, 7 total touchdowns, 298 yards passing, 4 passing touchdowns. Then he had 92 yards rushing off of 8 carries and 3 more rushing touchdowns. Arguably the best performance that Nick Evers has had all season for the Jaguars. And you got to love that, John. When you've been eliminated from the postseason, when your program and your team is so used to getting there in the playoffs, it's a lot as a coach to get your players to be like, hey, we still need to go out there and give it 110% each and every game up until our season's over with. And I think that seems to be the headspace that Flower Mound has, coming out with a 63-22 win over the Plano Wildcats. And they've still got one more game this Friday against a playoff caliber team in 6-6A, Coppell, the Cowboys, at 5-3. And I think Flower Mound certainly should be excited to try to go in there and kind of, spoil the party for the Cowboys in their last game of the regular season.
Yeah, Isaac Carpenter was Evers' main target. He had 8 catches for 119 yards, 2 touchdowns.
Ed Edline, 115 yards and a touchdown for him, too. Peyton Porter, I believe this is the first game of the regular season that the Jaguars have had a rusher with over 100 yards rushing. So good on Peyton Porter there, too, 111 yards and a touchdown on the ground. So Jaguars really went out to play against Plano, probably put on their best game of the season. Also, Stone Eby, the SMU commit, had himself a fumble recovery for a touchdown in the second half as well. So that defense doing what it does with Stone Eby, Colton Vatney, all those guys. They allowed just 3.1 yards per carry and just 93 total yards rushing in the game. They also had an interception as well as that fumble return by Eby. So the Jaguars are playing their best football going into their last game of the season against Coppell. And like I said, I think they'd love to spoil the party on the road against the Cowboys. And
they're playing for pride, and
out with
they're going to be amped up. They're going to be amped up. The Jaguars, man, I'm picking the Jags in the upset on the road Friday night.
Yeah, absolutely. And that would put them ending their regular season at 5-5. So you end the season at 500. Probably in terms of not making the playoffs, go into next year, go into the offseason with the best mentality that you got. You're going to have Nick Evers next year. You're going to have a lot of your players back next year. Go into 2021 with the right mental state of mind and a W. You know what I mean?
Hey, let's take a quick break and hear from our friends at Marty B's, and we'll be right back after this.
Marty, I've always enjoyed the range of menu items, whether you want to go in there for just an appetizer or a full entree. Talk to us a little bit about the selection there at Marty B's.
Yeah, thank you, John. The menu was uniquely crafted with a couple things in mind, and one thing I'm most proud of is that all of our meats are hormone-free, antibiotic-free, humanely raised, and fed an all-natural diet. So it truly makes a difference in the quality of the flavor of the food. For example, we're primarily barbecue is what we serve the largest amount of, and so all of our Tex-Mex options have smoked meats that we use to prepare those items. And then we have one of the best hamburgers you'll ever put your mouth around. All of our beef comes from 44 Farms down in Cameron, Texas. We cut our New York strip, our filet, and our ribeye in-house. And then all of the trimmings from that we fresh ground into our hamburger patty. And then we have our buns fresh baked from a bakery down in Houston. Unbelievable burger. And then, of course, the steaks speak for themselves, some of the best steaks you'll ever eat. So our menu is wide in range, but narrow in that it's just super focused on quality. So come out and enjoy salads, steaks, tacos, burgers. We have it all.
Marty, anytime we have friends or family come in from out of town, we always take them to Marty B's place because it's such a great Texas experience, and everybody just loves it. So thank you so much for being part of the Dinko Gridiron Show.
Shout out to Marty B's, and check out their website, martybsplace.com. You can order online or go and dine in, and they certainly have plenty of space for everybody. Huge property over there at Marty B's. Great food, great vibes, live music usually.
You know
too.
what? I might even head down there tonight. I think there's a little Thursday Night Football, plus we can pick up some of the games on the live stream.
Heck yeah. Make it happen.
Hey, maybe we'll see you at Marty B's tonight. Well, hey, Grayson, next up, Ryan Raiders, man, just, again, ranked number one in Texas 5A for a reason. I mean, they've got a lot of weapons, obviously great coaching staff, a great program for many, many, many years. And they win 52-21 versus Frisco Independence. And just, do you see anything slowing down the Ryan Raiders?
No, I really don't. Our Ryan in 5A is looking very similar, honestly, to Argyle in 4A. I mean, even when the Raiders play really good teams like Denton Guyer, they've gone out there and just dominated. They are the team to beat over in 5A right now across the entire state. Seth Hennigan actually had probably one of his slower games that he's had in recent memory. He had 2 passing touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown, 343 passing yards. He did have an interception. Kiori Hicks on the ground, just 89 yards rushing, but Jatavian Sanders has had himself a couple of weeks. He had 3 receiving touchdowns last week, 5 catches, 145 yards, 2 receiving touchdowns this week. Jordan Bailey also had over 100 yards receiving. But I got to give a lot of credit to Ryan's defense. They have really, I think, been the true X factor for the Raiders this season. They had just 1 interception, but they allowed just 181 total yards of offense, which in today's Texas high school football is pretty low, and then just allowed 3.4 yards per pass and just 2.3 yards per carry. I mean, Frisco Independence could not get anything going against that Raiders defense. Ryan is just a nonstop.
Yeah, they've got a lot of
train right
quite
now.
A few two-way players. You know, Billy Bowman obviously plays a lot of snaps on both sides of the ball.
Jatavian Sanders.
You know, I was telling somebody about Jatavian Sanders the other day. defensive end, and you think, oh, he moves over on the offensive side, he's a tight end. No, he's a wide receiver.
Yeah, and honestly, I would say last year and maybe even his sophomore year, Jatavian Sanders looked more like a defensive end, in my opinion. And now this year in 2020, he looks a lot more like a big wide receiver, kind of a Chase Claypool, DK Metcalf, like one of those.
Yeah, Des Bryant looking.
Yeah,
build,
he's just, really big built,
real strong
wide
legs. I've been on the sideline working some Denton Ryan Gaines before. He's a big, goes probably about 6'3" or so.
Yeah, I just thought he was, maybe a little bit thicker. These last couple years looked a little bit more like a defensive end, but he's kind of leaned up a little bit this year. Seems like he's got just that big wide receiver type of build. Certainly physical enough to play both ways successfully. It's not like he really lacks at one position over the other. He's just been on fire at wide receiver these last couple weeks.
Well,
5 touchdowns in 2 games.
Denton Ryan, I'm going to bring him up now. Dave Hennigan, the coaching pedigree there. Coach Florence, he's now the athletic director at Denton ISD. Really built Denton Ryan into a powerhouse, and then passed the torch to Dave Hennigan. And what a program! We're so fortunate here in the Denko Gridiron coverage area that we have such powerful teams. A couple teams had an off year, but even like Dallas, year in, year out, they're always a playoff contender. Had an off year this year. But how fortunate are we? The 9 teams, we've got, I think 4 of them are in the state top 10 in their respective classes.
Yeah, it's insane. I mean, just a couple of the schools we've already talked about, Geyer, Braswell, Marcus, and now Ryan. I mean, that's 4 of the 9 schools we cover, about half right off the bat, that are all most likely going to be in the postseason or are already guaranteed to be in the postseason. And if not that, then, we've got Ryan is the number 1 team in 5A. Geyer could arguably be discussed as a top 3, maybe even the number 1 team in 6A right now, the way they're playing. So
now Ryan does have a little bit of a test. Frisco Lone Star, the computer says that Ryan's just a 14-point favorite. Might be one of their tougher, other than Denton Geyer earlier in the year when they jumped up to a 6A, pre-district game. Might be one of their tougher games of the season.
Yeah, and I believe Frisco Lone Star is in the playoff race as well. They started off their season at 2-2. And we're looking like maybe they were going to have an off season. Well, now they've won 3 straight, and they sit at 5-2 overall. So they are playing their best football that they've played all season going into this matchup to end their regular season as well against the Ryan Raiders. And I know the Raiders want to stay undefeated going into the postseason. We both know that that's how Dave Hennigan it plans on going into the playoffs. Yeah. If anything, we might see these guys get rested in the second half. We know that they've done that a couple of times this year, but expect the Ryan Raiders to go out there and do what they've done to most schools this season. They're probably going to get a big lead, maybe sit their guys in the second half, but they want to go undefeated going into the playoffs.
And Colby, shout out. If you're just now tuning in, we were talking about the big win last week, the 63 points that the Jags dropped on their opponent, and we are picking the Jaguars to go into Capel Friday night with the upset victory to finish the season with a W. That's a very good W. So.
Yeah, and Nick Evers, we mentioned him having a great game, 7 total touchdowns. Peyton Porter, first rusher, we believe, this season to have over 100 rushing yards for any Jaguar. And that Flower Mound defense doing what it did in most occasions. Stone Eby had a fumble recovery for a touchdown. Colton Vatney was the dominant force that he was. And we think that Flower Mound, even though that they're out of the playoff race, that they'll certainly try to go out there and spoil the fun for Coppell in their last game of the regular season and 2020 at 500.
Hey, Grayson, we don't really promote this a lot, but one way I know one of your Christmas wish lists is the people would go to the patreon.com. It's on the screen now for you podcast listeners. patreon.com/Denko, DENCO. That way you can support the show. It is a kind of a crowdsourced supported show. We have very limited sponsors. I know we want to add some more equipment, maybe some wireless mics and some other things. Talk a little bit about that, what our plans are for the future.
Yeah, right now, for as little as $9, you can go on our Patreon and support the show in just trying to get some exclusive content, some exclusive access, and it's all just going to get reimbursed right back into this product here. We're doing everything we can to constantly seek improvement and try to make things better around here.
I like that. You learned that week 1, constant and never-ending improvement.
So just think, when you donate to the Denko Patreon, you're donating to better graphics, better lighting, maybe a better camera in the future. We're hoping to have a multi-camera setup eventually here in the studio. So, all of those things, for us to make those things happen, donations are certainly
We also have Quincy
appreciated.
Horde. You're a student, a grad student at UNT. Quincy Horde's in his undergrad and doing some special assignments and some workforce as well. So we're looking to build out the staff as well and bring on some more, maybe some UNT students.
Trying to expand the Denco Gridiron team over here.
Footprint.
And just, try to make this thing better. And it's Christmas time. So I've already had some family and some friends be like, hey, what do you want for Christmas? And I was telling John before the show, I'm like, I think I'm just going to start telling people like, hey, just go ahead and donate to the Denco Gridiron Patreon for me. Because
that's easy. They don't have to go to the mall. They don't have to shop online.
You don't got to do nothing. All you got to do.
It's like shopping online. We should have done something for Cyber Monday.
Hey, we should have, but
shame on me.
And, we're probably going to try to post the Patreon page a little bit more around social media, promote that a little bit more, drive some more engagement. And like I said, for at the moment, the littlest you can donate is $9 to help us out. But we're thinking maybe we'll bring in another cheaper option for students or anybody else that tunes into the show or something like that. Maybe $9's a little bit too high of a start or something like that. But still, nonetheless, it's Christmas time. If you guys want to, make us happy during the holiday season, go ahead and donate to that Patreon.
Man, nice job. And you're learning broadcast journalism, weaving in a little bit of promotion.
I'm in here, John. I've been doing this thing.
Hey, next up, Denton Broncos, definitely, unfortunately having an off year. They've had some good seasons in years past, but this is not one of them.
Yeah, they come out with another tough loss against the Frisco Wakeland Wolverines, 35-7, the final score there. And according to Dallas Morning News, and from what I saw in the highlights of this game, the first half was pretty closely contested. On the first drive of the game, Wakeland converted a 3rd and 24 that ended up turning into a 37-yard touchdown pass later on. And then Denton responded with a touchdown of their own from Coco Brown on their first drive of the game that made it 7-6 going into the second quarter. And then the Wolverines just slowly started pulling away. And Denton was trailing 21-7 going into the fourth. Frisco Wakeland put up a couple more touchdowns there in the fourth quarter, and 35-7 was your final score there. It's just been
the offensive production just has not been there, and it's hard to win games in Texas high school football when you put up single digits.
Yeah, and it's especially just been at quarterback, I think, for Denton High this year, which is really unfortunate. Coco Brown has kind of been the only real weapon that the Broncos have had to work with in 2020, and when you only have one guy that is going to get the ball, it just it gets easier to predict what the offense is going to do, and that's just kind of how it's been for opponents that have been taken on Denton this year. Blake Courtney was the starting quarterback in this one. He went 7 for 10 for 90 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. Cole Hager also went 3 for 5 for 80 yards and an interception. So the Broncos slowly got a little bit better as the year went on at quarterback, but they just didn't really have enough talent there to make their offense, truly efficient against some of these better schools.
Yeah, I'll try to visit with Coach Billy Miller in the offseason. I'm sure those coaches, they work year round to always improve their program. Seeking constant, never-ending improvement, like we talk about. And I'm sure he's got some plans. Hit that weight room in the offseason. And
Frisco Wakeland's they're a playoff seeking team. They're in the hunt right now, trying to get into the postseason. So they needed to go out there against Denton and establish themselves. The Wolverines did. But in this final game of the regular season, Denton High is actually going to be on the road. They're taking on Frisco Centennial, the Titans, who are 3-6 this regular season. And that's a formidable opponent for Denton High. I think if the Broncos go out there and play one of their better games that they've played in 2020, they can come out with a win to end the regular season. Frisco Centennial doesn't necessarily have any playoffs to fight for themselves. So I think if Denton goes out there, solid game plan, Coco Brown maybe has himself a game or something like that, the Broncos could certainly go into the offseason on a positive note.
Yeah. Next up, the Lake Dallas Falcons.
Tough go for them as well in this one.
Yeah, they've been kind of in there with the Denton Broncos, just not one of their better seasons. I think some question marks offensively, obviously, that they've had struggles putting points on the board all season long.
Yeah, and Lake Dallas, the credit that I'll give them, even though they finished their 2020 season at 1-8, is that they did get better as the season went on visibly. for the first half of the season, there were so many gaps at quarterback, at running back, at having an identity on both sides of the ball. I just feel like the Falcons didn't really know who they were. And then they hit their bye week. And ever since their bye week, John, in my opinion, I think that the Falcons have been playing much better football and have honestly had to just run into some really good teams like Frisco Memorial this week as they fell 62-13. But the Lake Dallas visibly got better, and you can see it in the numbers. Brendan Sorsby has had 2 really good weeks these last 2 weeks. He went 11 for 26 in this one against the Warriors, 191 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns. Evan Weinberg had probably the best performance by any Lake Dallas receiver this entire season in the last game of the year. 4 catches, 142 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That's an awesome game for a Falcons wide receiver. So, even though Lake Dallas only finishes the year with just 1 win and no playoffs, I got to give it to them. They never stopped fighting throughout all of 2020. They got better each and every week, no matter who they were playing. And hopefully they don't lose too many guys and can improve going into next season.
Yeah, Coach Michael Young, he's been there for 15-plus seasons. He's just built a bedrock of a really strong program. And, I'll be encouraged to see how they bounce back in 2021.
I totally agree. And, you don't love to see 1-8 to end your season, but I talked about this a couple of weeks ago, John. When you're having that kind of year, you got to find the positives. You got to find those silver linings, and I certainly think the Falcons were doing that throughout their last couple of games. They were looking pretty good in some areas for sure.
Well, I tuned in to the Argyle Waco La Vega game. That
huge game.
Man, the storyline there is each of the last couple seasons, Argyle beats Waco La Vega during the regular season. But then Waco La Vega has their number in the postseason. They stopped the jinx this season, Argyle with a victory.
You're talking 3 straight years, John, where the Argyle Eagles get knocked out of the playoffs by the same team, Waco La Vega. And I think Todd Rogers and company were just really sick of it going into this postseason. So they finally take care
they're
of
on
business.
a mission this year. And, they got, I think, everybody back healthy. Tito Bice, man, he looks strong back there. Man, Tito is the epitome of a Texas high school football player, one of the team captains, and definitely going to push them probably to AT&T Stadium for a deep run into this 4A playoffs.
Yeah, and even though they didn't blow out Waco La Vega is a really good team, and they obviously know how Todd Rogers in that Argyle Eagles program likes to run their offense and stuff. So they came in with a lot of knowledge on Argyle, and the Eagles still come out with a 28-14 victory. So they didn't blow them out, but still seems like they had a command throughout the entire game. Tito Bice, as you mentioned, John, really the star in this one. 23 carries, 164 yards, and a touchdown. That's the most carries that he's had all season. Cash Walker had a receiving touchdown. Hayden Stewart had a receiving touchdown. The defense had 1 fumble and 1 interception, and they allowed just 13 total yards passing for the entire game. And when you can't pass the football, you're going to have a hard time beating a really good team like Argyle, and that's what happened to Waco La Vega.
Yeah, I'm just typing in comments here. And
and I was going to say, the thing about the Eagles is that somehow going into next round, they have, honestly, an even easier matchup than Waco La Vega. They're taking on the Paris Wildcats, who they already played during the regular season, John.
It's a Saturday game.
Beat them 28-7. Pretty commanding win there for them. Doesn't seem like they struggled with Paris mightily during the regular season. So let's just hope that the Wildcats don't go in there and, pull a Waco La Vega on them and catch the Argyle Eagles slipping in the middle of the playoffs, but I don't think that's going to happen. Like you said, Argyle's honestly seeming like they're on a mission.
They'll be at McKinney ISD Stadium. I still haven't done a game there, but man, I've driven by it. A beautiful stadium. 6 p.m. kick on Saturday night, so the sun will be setting or right at dusk.
You'll get the stadium lights.
Should be. I haven't checked the weather, but I think it's going to be kind of cool and crisp.
It'll probably be. I like that. Cool and crisp is probably going to be a good description there. It's December football, John. This is football weather, and I think that Argyle's going to come prepared.
Josh Chappa chimes in, says Paris going to be a tough game. Let's go Eagles.
I'm not saying that Argyle's probably just going to waltz in there and steamroll them. They did win 28-7 in the regular season, but like we said, I just think the Eagles are really on a mission this year. They're really not letting anybody stop them. They didn't let the team that stopped them the last 3 years stop them in 2020. So I'm just not really seeing how Paris, a school that lost 28-7 during the regular season to this team, is somehow going to go out there with the same team. Even if you have a completely different game plan, I just think Argyle's the better school there for sure.
And I think last up,
let's go Eagles, Josh.
Liberty Christian versus Fort Worth All Saints. They had a little momentum coming in, won 2 previous games, but their season comes to an end. Their second playoff game against Fort Worth All Saints, they lose that one 44-17, Grayson.
Yeah, and Liberty Christian officially ends their 2020 regular season with that playoff loss against the Fort Worth All Saints, 44-17, as you said there, John. Daniel Greek, 158 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. Kellen Moran had a really great game at wide receiver for Liberty Christian, 5 catches, 134 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns. Ty Strickland really wasn't able to get the run game going. He had just 44 yards rushing for the Warriors. But Liberty Christian, they now wrap up their 2020 season with a playoff loss against the All Saints and their year at 2-7 overall. But those 2 wins came back to back.
Yeah, they can build on that. Definitely a disappointing year. I mean, I've said it a couple of times this season during the show. I had a chance to visit during media day, and the eye test, they had some talented players, some big offensive tackles. I think they're going to play some defense as well, but just didn't quite have the season that they had hoped for at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, and we talked to their head coach a couple of times this year, and they've just kind of been like, man, our schedule is just crazy tough. We're just playing some
like
of
the SEC of TAPS, each and every week,
a gauntlet.
A lot of talented kids play at the private school level, and that showed. I mean, I think we can surmise that Liberty Christian is better than their record shows.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. I think 2-7 doesn't really do the type of team that Liberty Christian had this season any justice. I mean, Daniel Greek's going to an SEC school, Mississippi State, at the next level. He's a really good quarterback. And, Kellen Moran's worthy of being a next-level wide receiver. I believe Ty Strickland's got a couple of D2 and even some low D1 offers as a running back. I mean, there's a lot of talent on that Liberty Christian Warriors roster, and they just had to play some really talented teams this year. And even though that they only got 2 W's in 2020, one was to end their regular season. The next one was a playoff victory to start the playoffs off. That was an upset win for them. So I think they ended their season on a higher note, very similar to how Lake Dallas did.
Hey, Grayson, before we get into the final segment of the Dinko Gridiron Show, the Gridiron Players of the Week.
Love this segment.
Hey, if you'll hold up that Suckle Busters, just give. I know we have people that join throughout the show. If you'll text DINTCO to 214-416-9771, join the community. We are next week, and we may have an alternate time throughout the playoffs. Our schedule may change, but we're going to give away a Suckle Busters gift package or a gift certificate. And all you have to do to enter to win is text the word DINTCO to 214-416-9771. And next up, one of the favorite segments of especially the players, Grayson, is the DINTCO Gridiron Players of the Week.
Love our DINTCO Gridiron Players of the Week. And that Suckle Busters, remember, you get a beef rub, a chicken rub, and a pork and rib rub. So
nice.
Definitely want to get in on that. But now getting into our Players of the Week, John, starting off at quarterback, a guy that we haven't had the pleasure to feature here on our Gridiron Players of the Week all 2020, but I think it came right at the perfect time for him. Nick Evers of the Flower Mound Jaguars had a huge game in their 63-22 win over the Plano Wildcats, 22-31 through the air, 298 passing yards, 4 passing touchdowns, no interceptions. And then on the ground, he was also the leading rusher at 8 carries, 92 yards, 3 rushing touchdowns for him. So certainly an insane performance for Nick Evers in his first appearance as a Gridiron Player of the Week.
Yeah, man, just an outstanding effort. No give up in that kid, and
absolutely not.
Big victory, and be interesting to see how he does on the road against Capel. Nice to finish out his season with another big game.
Yeah, and I said it in their loss when they played, and I broadcasted their game against the Louisville Fighting Farmers. Even though they fell to Louisville in that one, I said that Nick Evers looked like the best player on the field, period, for Flower Mound, and he's got a lot of talent. He's much quicker than you give him credit for. He's got the physical skills and tools to make things happen, and it certainly seems like he's got the fight to be a great leader going into next season for the Jaguars.
And next up, I had a chance to see him up close and personal.
You talk about him.
Second time of the season to get a Gridiron Player of the Week.
Yes, it is.
acknowledgement, award, trophy, whatever we want to call it.
Honor.
B.J. Phillips from Guyer High School, 11 carries, 107 yards, 2 touchdowns. But I'll tell you what, Grayson, his presence in the backfield really opens up some of those possession receptions that Eli Stowers has been throwing. And he's a good blocker for Stowers. You know, Stowers has been racking up some yards all season long. B.J. Phillips at, 6'1", 215, pretty nice lead blocker there for Eli Stowers as well. So he's getting it done in a lot of different areas of the game for the Guyer Wildcats, and he'll be a big part of their playoff run.
Absolutely, and I mentioned it earlier in the show, 100 yards rushing in 3 straight games now for B.J. Phillips. He's really turned it on to a second gear here in the back half of the Wildcats regular season, and him and Eli Stowers have really created an excellent lightning and thunder combo there. You know, he brings the power, he brings that brute toughness.
Thunder and lightning.
Yeah, thunder and lightning, yeah. That? And, Eli Stowers brings that quickness, that swiftness. So I really like what the two of them have created over there in that Guyer offense.
Well, hey, next up from the Lake Dallas Falcons,
Evan Weinberg, the wide receiver for Lake Dallas, ends their regular season with the best performance of his 2020 season, as well as for any Falcons wide receiver. 4 catches, 142 yards, 2 touchdowns in their loss, unfortunately, to end their regular season against Frisco Wakeland. But it was his first appearance as a player of the week, the first appearance for any Falcons wide receiver as the player of the week. And I think that he picked the perfect time to do it. 142 yards, 2 touchdowns. Awesome game for Evan Weinberg to end 2020 for Lake Dallas.
Well, Grayson, man, another great show. Fans, we're not sure our schedule next week. It might be Wednesday night. We're not sure yet. But
keep an eye on our social media.
So
Denko
stay tuned
Gridiron
for
show.
that.
And we'll keep y'all updated on when next week's show is coming. Thanks for tuning in. And let's get ready for the playoffs, y'all.
From Fox 4, make sure to tune in to the Denko Gridiron Show.
Podcast listeners, thank you so much for being a part of the show. Subscribe, share. If you like what we're doing, give us a review on Apple Podcast. Thank you so much.